It all commenced 3 million years ago, when humanity was not but fetid primates lording over the primeval wilderness. Amongst these rudimentary beings existed the focal point of our chronicle, an unremarkable Australopithecus, consumed by an unparalleled ardor for the hunt. Yet, the singular attribute that distinguished him from every other being was his deathless nature. He was immortal. While his brethren disintegrated into oblivion across eons, he persevered, an eternal observer of time's relentless march. Innumerable epochs swept past, yet the relentless passage of time held no dominion over him. Within the boundless expanse of his existence, he dedicated himself to the pursuit of prey, engaging in ceaseless skirmishes and brutal conflicts. It transcended mere survival. It metamorphosed into an all-consuming obsession, his sole raison d'etre. Succinctly, the evisceration of his quarry became his ultimate euphoria. After 3 million years immersed in this apex existence, he became profoundly formidable. With nothing but brute physical prowess honed through eons of combat, he became so immensely powerful that he literally transcended mortality and joined the pantheon of gods. It didn't take him long to become the undisputed, top-ranked deity in the celestial realm. Now Mu, the once unremarkable primate, presides over planet Earth. But achieving divinity had never been this individual's aspiration, and currently, ennui is tormenting him relentlessly. Out of pure, unadulterated boredom, he lightly grazes the ground beneath him with a single toe, and that minuscule gesture is sufficient to convulse the entire planet. The planet he occupies happens to be the sacred sanctuary, known as the divine realm. Every other deity in the sanctuary perceives the colossal earthquake induced by Mu's nonchalant tap. The second-ranked god, Lucifer, the god of Elmer, is particularly irritated by the tremor, for he harbors no doubts about the culprit. Meanwhile, Mu reclines languidly upon his throne, his countenance visibly soured, it seems. He's already battled every contender, who might have presented even a semblance of a true challenge. Now, not a single soul remains who can withstand his might. An eternity has passed since his last skirmish. He can't even recall its occurrence. Perhaps a millennium ago, he last engaged in combat. It appears our protagonist is quite literally languishing in his triumphs. His prowess is so absolute that no adversary remains. But a thought strikes him. If no one possesses the strength to oppose him, perhaps diminishing his own power is the key to reigniting the thrill of battle. With this brilliant epiphany, Mu resolves to inhabit the fragile vessel of a human on Earth, where he will relentlessly pursue opportunities for combat. He beckons his loyal familiar, Yung, a colossal reptilian behemoth who swiftly materializes, ever ready to heed his master's call. Yung is no mere companion. He is the supreme god's personal secretary, and his name, quite literally, translates to dragon in the common tongue. When Yung inquires about the motive behind this unexpected summons, Mu nonchalantly reveals his intention to journey to Earth. Upon hearing this, Yung succumbs to panic and instantly conjures an unbreakable binding enchantment, fettering his master with magical chains. He vehemently demands a rational justification for this impulsive and foolhardy choice, especially with the impending divine assembly on the horizon. Mu is obligated to remain and fulfill his sacred duties. However, Mu displays utter indifference towards such responsibilities. Without even acknowledging the magical restraints, he commences his departure, hauling his colossal reptilian attendant as if he were weightless. Yung frantically endeavors to restrain him, but his attempts prove fruitless. The true motive behind Yong's desperation isn't solely duty. It stems from his personal apprehension. This reptilian being comprehends that once his master departs, the other deities will redirect their resentment and pent-up anger towards him. He is convinced they will utilize him as their personal scapegoat to unleash all the suppressed fury they've nurtured against Mu. But now that Mu has finally resolved himself, there's no force in existence that can deter him from realizing his yearning for combat. With effortless grace, he shatters the shackles binding him and turns to his aid. He frankly proclaims that he'd contemplate remaining if only Yung, and only Yung, is prepared to engage him in a duel. Of course, being utterly decimated by his own superior is the absolute last thing this unfortunate reptile desires. So, anxiously, he merely offers his master a safe journey instead. With all impediments eradicated, Mu redirects his attention to locating a suitable vessel to inhabit, attuning himself to the thoughts of the Earth's inhabitants. He scrutinizes the multitude of minds, heeding their aspirations and yearnings. Amidst the cacophony, one thought resonates most powerfully with him, a wish emanating from a specific individual who longs to be transported to another realm. Mu beams from ear to ear upon this revelation. Not only has he unearthed the ideal vessel, but he can also fulfill this individual's aspirations as a gratuity. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. He then addresses his confidant and proclaims his departure from his corporeal form, relinquishing the duty of safeguarding whomever succeeds him. This revelation sends Yang into a state of utter pandemonium. Frantically, he implores his mentor to reconsider, elucidating that should the spirit vacate, the flesh and the body expires. The spirit will likewise cease to exist. However, Mu, with his unyielding resolve, remains steadfast in his decision. He dismisses Young's anxieties with a pledge of swift return. Now, our focus shifts to the 17-year-old terrestrial inhabitant, Li Ho, who, until this juncture, has been an insignificant individual, immersing himself in virtual realms, fantasizing as the protagonist. There, he experiences a fleeting sense of supremacy. But this particular game marks his final virtual endeavor. Despondent with his wretched existence, he resolves to terminate his life, yearning for an eye-sky, a chance to inhabit the life he genuinely craves. Without a flicker of hesitation, he plunges into the abyss. As he plummets, Li Ho blasphemes against his deity, seeking to goad the divine being into transporting him to another realm. Finally, he impacts the earth with a sickening, splattering thud. Upon expiring, his eyes open to behold a colossal creature looming before him, inducing a cold sweat of absolute terror. Both Li Ho and Yang echo the identical inquiry. Who in the hell are you? Now let's shift our focus to Mu, who now inhabits Li Ho's corporeal form. Mere moments before the fatal impact, the instant the body is transformed into a gruesome spectacle upon collision, he finds himself barely capable of manipulating his appendages. Before continuing, let's delve into a brief discourse on involuntary musculature. Muscles that function independent of conscious command are known as involuntary muscles. The heart, along with the musculature of internal organs, exemplifies involuntary muscle function. Mu, having dedicated 3 million years to honing his physique, has achieved the apex of comprehension regarding the human form. He possesses the conscious capacity to regulate every facet of his body, including blood vessels, and remarkably, even involuntary muscles are not exempt from his control. He mends the heart of this expiring form by manipulating the vascular system and even staunching the hemorrhage. Truthfully, it has been eons since he last experienced such significant blood loss. Thus, the sensation of depleting his life force is intensely arousing. A profound sense of pride now swells within him for his choice to embark on this journey. Initially, he resolves to proceed towards the base of operations, which, naturally, is presumed to be the dwelling of the earthling, Li Ho. Upon returning to his dormitory quarters, Mu dedicates hours to sifting through memories and deciphers the majority of information he requires. Apparently, Li Ho has but a solitary family member, and they're male, but reside a considerable distance away. Consequently, Li Ho dwells here in solitude. Simply put, Li Ho undeniably embodies the epitome of poverty and despair. His current vocation involves attending an institution known as school. Moreover, there's a particular individual who perpetually fabricates justifications. This only amplifies Mu's elation, as the singular objective of his planetary visit is combat. He's poised to instantly engage in a brawl and commence thrashing anyone who dares to oppose him. While he's becoming increasingly agitated, he abruptly experiences a tingling discomfort in his muscles. He swiftly deduces that this muscular tenderness stems from the handstand he previously executed. Despite the excruciating agony, which one might assume would be a significant deterrent, our protagonist is utterly invigorated to encounter this well-known sensation of muscular soreness, a sensation he hasn't encountered in a millennia. The following day, the location where Li Ho perished attracts the scrutiny of the authorities, and is swiftly designated a restricted crime scene. With a copious amount of blood staining the ground, they endeavor to ascertain the victim's identity. Mu also observes the officers congregated there, but he diverts his path, veering towards his classroom. Upon reaching the school, Mu flings open the classroom door with ferocious intensity, causing it to rebound and strike him squarely in the face. Present is also the individual glimpsed in Li Ho's recollections. He registers Mu's arrival and interrogates him regarding his imprudence. Recognizing the familiar countenance, Mu promptly recollects that this is the same scoundrel who habitually tormented Li Ho. The spectacle of his victim presented to him on a silver platter fills him with unadulterated exhilaration. Even the bully exhibits a touch of audacity. Observing the lunatic's maniacal grin, he sets down his phone, braces himself, and unleashes a sudden, unprovoked punch. The blow draws blood from Mu's face, yet he remains impassive, unfazed by the ambush. Mu adheres to a personal code of combat. A fight truly commences only when all participants share an unspoken agreement, a mutual acknowledgement of the intent to battle. Thus, the crux lies in deciphering the opponent's resolve. The method to ascertain this resolve is to await the opponent's initial strike. However, this principle subjects Mu to considerable facial injury. He's relieved that now, finally, he has the implicit permission to engage. Without hesitation, he retaliates with a crushing blow to the scoundrel's face. The force of the impact is so tremendous that every muscle in his arm screams in agony. The muscle soreness is so excruciating that his face contorts as if he'd just swallowed something repulsive. Lest we forget, they're in a classroom, and the teacher instantly erupts in a furious tirade, incensed by the sight of these two imbeciles brawling. The bully, on the other hand, feels his ego disintegrate after being rocked by such a forceful blow. To salvage his pride, he lunges at our protagonist. Mu swiftly enters a state of high alert, but uncertainty gnaws at him. Can he protect himself? Were his body in peak condition, he'd effortlessly evade this attack. However, currently deprived of the necessary vigor, he resorts to a different tactic he has at his disposal. Despite this, he still absorbs a brutal impact from the bully and learns the harsh reality that there's no magical assistance in this world. The bully readies himself to unleash another strike, while Mu is gripped by the chilling realization that his defensive options are dwindling. Yet, he steels his resolve, prepared to confront this antagonist head-on, even without the use of his arms, legs, or magic. This guy resorts to his incredibly durable skull, literally. He absorbs the punch directly with his head. His cranium is so impenetrable that the bully actually hears the sickening crunch of his own bones fracturing. He's left writhing in an agony he never anticipated. While his opponent is disoriented and reeling from the pain, Mu seizes the moment and slams his head directly into the bully's gut, targeting the most vulnerable spot on the human body, the solar plexus. Then, he unleashes a brutal headbutt uppercut, smashing the bully's chin with devastating force. With his final, crushing blow, the bully's legs buckle, and every Gen Alpha kid in the vicinity instantly scrambles for their phones to capture the defeated bully's humiliation. Faces gleam with perspiration as they witness Li Ho's effortless triumph. Just yesterday, they saw him brutally beaten, making this astonishing comeback utterly unbelievable. Meanwhile, our protagonist is utterly engrossed in his own contemplation. He vividly recollects the distinct sensation that arises when a brawl concludes and the adrenaline subsides. There's a singular feeling attainable only in those fleeting moments. A dull, persistent ache throbbing in the bruised areas and the coppery, acrid tang of blood trickling into your mouth. This precise sensation is what he's been yearning for, and in this instant, he's undeniably exhilarated by this overwhelming feeling. Our man stoops down, ensuring he conveys his appreciation to the vanquished bully. However, his method of expressing gratitude is decidedly unconventional, something utterly unforeseen, even by me. He gapes his jaws, severs the bully's ear with a brutal bite, and then disgorges it onto the ground with primal ferocity. This gruesome display amplifies everyone's apprehension. The sheer nonchalance with which he detached someone's ear is unsettling. This, it seems, is Mu's signature way of concluding things, leaving an indelible mark on those who provide him with an enjoyable fight. It's his perverse expression of gratitude, branding them as playthings for his amusement. Henceforth, they would be known as Moose's toys. Only formidable adversaries could provide him with an exhilarating challenge. Thus, naturally, becoming a Moose's toy became synonymous with strength in his eyes. However, on Earth, reality operates differently. Therefore, it's hardly astonishing that his peculiar custom is inciting widespread animosity. Even students from other classes are gossiping about Moo. Certainly, one student brawling with another is nothing novel, but someone being emasculated in this manner is unprecedented in the school's history. Through the windows, the entire student body observes the bully being carried into the ambulance. Moo is pleased that this establishment provides on-site medical attention. As the ambulance accelerates away, he cheerfully bids a final farewell to the vanquished bully. While our protagonist has sated his thirst for combat, it's finally time to confront the repercussions. His exasperated teacher stands directly behind him. Once they enter the office, the teacher launches into a tirade against Moo. The teacher is absolutely livid, so enraged that he reflexively raises his hand to strike Moo. Moo, on the contrary, becomes exhilarated at the prospect of the impending blow. He practically dares the scoundrel to hit him. But observing Moo's unsettling eagerness, the teacher recoils and freezes in his tracks. The teacher abruptly turns away, concluding that reasoning with this madman is futile. He instructs Moo to bring his parents and then dismisses him with an early dismissal from school. Moments later, Moo is seen strolling down the street, his demeanor noticeably dejected, since he was deprived of further fighting. Still, it's fortunate he was released early, as he requires time to recuperate from his injuries. There's much to be done if he intends to continue battling with this frail physique. If only he could harness mana, it would fundamentally alter his situation. Speaking of mana, it's a power that transcends human limitations, known by various monikers such as chi or chakra in certain cultures. But more often than not, it's simply referred to as mana. Essentially, mana is the vital force that permeates all of nature. In some realms, humans harness it to become formidable hunters. In others, they ascend to become powerful mages. However, on Earth, mana is non-existent. Consequently, magic or any abilities requiring mana cannot be utilized. He even attempts to conjure magic, but his efforts prove futile. It appears Moo has no recourse, but to depend solely on his brute strength. Nevertheless, he resolves to return to God's sanctuary and come back the following day. Once his body is fully restored, upon his return, he discovers Li Ho strangling the hapless young. Moments later, Li Ho directly confronts Moo, declaring his intention to transport this dragon to another dimension. After all, should he retain this dragon in his possession, he'll be overwhelmingly powerful from the outset. But Moo pays little heed to this mortal's pronouncements. He simply summons a colossal hand that seizes Li Ho and commences his departure without adequately elucidating his objectives. Although he does fleetingly remark that he unequivocally intends to dispatch Li Ho to an alternate realm. A short time subsequently, we arrive at Lucifer's dominion, the deity of the second order. Moo intrudes upon the fortress without requesting entry or any such formality. Lucifer, in the meantime, is already cognizant of the unfolding events and Moo's purpose. Thus, he unequivocally rebuffs him without so much as a hearing. But Moo persists, asserting that he has irrevocably resolved to banish this scoundrel to another dimension. Therefore, he meekly beseeches Lucifer to unlock the portal. Lucifer, naturally, abhors Moo's arrogance and his attempts to exert dominance. Furthermore, he possesses no incentive to acquiesce to Moo's directives. Well, my friend swiftly reminds Lucifer of the immense disparity in their power, which should provide ample justification for his obedience. But should Lucifer still find himself resistant to complying with the directive, he's welcome to challenge Moo to a confrontation to resolve the matter. Naturally, Lucifer comprehends the inevitable outcome of such a challenge, leaving him to simmer in frustration. Finally, he acquiesces and prepares to unlock the gate. However, Moo promptly intervenes, choosing to take matters into his own hands. Lucifer cautions him that meddling in another deity's territory violates the unspoken divine laws. He forewarns that should a god encroach upon a fellow god's domain, a protective barrier will be triggered. Moo, being Moo, shatters the barrier with his bare hands, disregarding the explicit caution. This leaves Lucifer utterly dumbfounded. Having breached the barrier, Moo releases his hold on the boy and directs him to pass through the portal, guaranteeing his arrival in a different realm. But Li Ho remains uncertain. If he desires to venture into an uncharted territory without the dragon's companionship he had previously requested, but Mu flatly refuses, declaring that Yong Yong belongs to him, and simply offers Li Ho his best wishes in acquiring a dragon of his own. With a flick of his colossal hand, he propels Li Ho towards the gateway, dispatching him to this new reality. With the task fulfilled, Mu chooses to depart. Lucifer, conversely, is left standing there, his hands quivering with fury. You see, Lucifer originated from his own dominion, the planet Illumera. He was its inaugural demon king, reigning supreme over all living creatures. With the immensity of his power, he succumbed to arrogance, to the extent that he dared to challenge the very entity known as God. And astonishingly, he succeeded in vanquishing the deity he had defied, effectively usurping their positions. He ascended to supremacy by vanquishing other deities of that era. Lucifer was the sovereign among gods, their absolute monarch, invincible and paramount, legendary and unequaled, cataclysmic and mythical, infinite and transcendental. In essence, he was an utterly insurmountable force. Well, that was until Mu emerged. So, in the present, it's hardly astonishing that Lucifer utterly despises the brute known as Mu. Outside, as Mu mounts Yong Yong to depart, we see a single, menacing eye vigilantly observing our hero. Let's return our attention to Lucifer, who is as crimson as a beet, seething with rage. Now let's shift back to that ruffian, whose face eerily mirrors a furious Lucifer. He's utterly exasperated. After being thoroughly trounced by a so-called, what a sorry excuse for a fighter. But he's not about to let Li Ho walk away scot-free, especially after being so thoroughly embarrassed. Retaliation burns in his veins. His pride demands it. He decides to unleash his secret weapon. Enter Kong Kale, a force to be reckoned with. This ripped powerhouse is the reigning champion of the 11th National Sports Festival, dominating the youth division's middleweight boxing category. As he relentlessly trains, sweat pouring off him, a sudden ringing from a phone in the locker room pierces the air and grabs his attention. The phone isn't his, however. It belongs to his buddy, Guachio. Guac boasts 2 years of boxing experience, along with 14 grueling sparring sessions under his belt. Guac snatches up his cracked phone and answers. And naturally, the caller is none other than that insufferable, arrogant punk. Since his real name remains a mystery, let's bestow upon him a fitting moniker, Chicken. Chick Puss presents Guac with a brand new phone to replace his shattered one. But there's a catch, a favor he needs in return. Well, you know the drill. Guac, eager to please, is more than happy to oblige Chick Puss. The scene shifts abruptly to the classroom. Chick Puss enters, his nose and ears still swathed in bandages, his hand also encased in a wrap. After his mortifying defeat in front of the entire school, he can barely manage to walk in with his head held high. Predictably, he becomes the immediate focus of everyone's attention. The students erupt in a cacophony of questions, demanding to know how he ended up in such a sorry state. After a history of relentlessly tormenting others, they find his predicament utterly hilarious. The once formidable bully is now nothing but a pathetic, defeated wreck. The students who once trembled before him now find it ludicrous that they were ever intimidated by this ragged vagrant. Finally, the relentless taunts pierce Chick Puss's pride, causing him to slam his bag down in a fit of rage. He fixes a menacing glare upon every student he encounters, those intentionally murmuring just loud enough for him to perceive their taunts. He openly defies them all, provoking them to confront him directly, if they are so fervently itching for a brawl. While most of the students recoil in trepidation, one particular student, the elected class representative, rises from her chair resolutely and without a moment's pause. She commands him to shut the hell up and sit down, or if he finds her words disagreeable, he can vacate the classroom. Chick Puss, she sneers, unable to tolerate the reality that he once held the position of top dog in this very room, but now endures treatment as an utter pariah. Consumed by a surge of fury, he seizes a chair and bellows a challenge to the entire class, goading anyone to engage him if they possess such audacity. It is at this precise moment that a powerfully built individual strides into the classroom. Once inside, he interrogates the boisterous student about the reason for his outburst. Chick Puss swiftly retreats to his seat, cowering in his chair, while the class president offers a subtle nod to the teacher, a silent acknowledgement of the escalating tension, silently conveying that all is well. The instructor, however, harbors different intentions. He requests a post-school meeting with the class president. Apparently, the individual who instigated yesterday's commotion, Li Ho, has become unreachable by phone. The teacher desires the class president to ascertain his well-being, to further incentivize her. He guarantees a stellar letter of recommendation for her upcoming senior year. With that assurance, the teacher deftly delegates his responsibility to the unsuspecting student and promptly departs. Later, the class president reaches the dormitory. She raps on the door repeatedly, seemingly for an eternity, but receives no response. With calls also going unanswered, she resolves to take action and enters the room. The instant she crosses the threshold, two observations instantly seize her attention. Firstly, cockroaches are swarming everywhere. Secondly, and far more alarming, the object of her search lies sprawled on the floor. His eyes vanished upwards into his head. Her heart hammered in her chest, panic surging through her. For a fleeting instant, she truly believed she was gazing upon a lifeless body. Later, we observe Li Ho being conveyed to a medical facility. At that precise moment, Mu re-inhabits his physical form. Upon regaining consciousness, in an entirely unfamiliar environment, Mu is instinctively inquisitive about his surroundings. As he attempts to rise, he detects himself tethered to an intravenous drip. Unacquainted with the concept of injections, or IVs, he harbors suspicion towards the peculiar sensation of liquid coursing into his veins. Concentrating his attention, he discerns that the fluid contains nourishment, which is being swiftly absorbed, expediting his recuperation. It's not quite sorcery, but whatever this contraption is, it's undeniably potent. The notion that even Earth possesses something this beneficial evokes a smile upon his face. However, his subdued chuckling attracts the notice of the student body present, which only unnerves her. She then clarifies that their homeroom instructor tasked her with locating him. With her objective accomplished, she intends to depart. Meanwhile, Mu harbors a multitude of unanswered questions. He promptly implores her to pause, allowing him to inquire about a few things. She acknowledges his plea and halts, granting him a brief moment of her time at his insistence. Before proceeding towards her tutoring session, it appears Mu has some inquiries that could potentially illuminate this unfamiliar world for him. The paramount question for this combat-obsessed individual is whether there exists a location where he can hone his physique. The girl remains utterly impassive, perplexed on how to react to his utterly unexpected query. It had caught her completely off guard. After a brief deliberation, she resolves to guide him. Since Mu is utterly destitute, he finds himself in a public park rather than a crowded gymnasium. After a few pull-ups, Mu feels quite content despite being in a commonplace park, furnished with rudimentary exercise equipment. He perceives it all as remarkably sophisticated compared to what he had access to 4,000 years prior. Back then, his only workout consisted of rolling boulders, scaling cliffs, and excavating pits. It was all unrefined, primal training techniques, but observing this contemporary apparatus, he's compelled to acknowledge that Earth's inhabitants are more resilient than he initially assumed. Abruptly, a pebble strikes him from out of the blue. It appears Chickpoos has arrived, accompanied by Goak, the companion he enlisted, if I recall correctly. Chickpoos is saturated with perspiration, his face grimacing as if grappling with a severe bout of constipation. He's been scouring the entire vicinity for Mu, and of all locations, this is where he finally locates him. Meanwhile, Mu retrieves the pebble from the ground, attempting to deduce who possessed the audacity to pelt him with it. In a moment of sheer stupidity, Chickpoos confesses his involvement, swiftly followed by a menacing threat, boastfully proclaiming that Mu's time is running out. He brags that his cousin single-handedly vanquished all the third years. But before Chickpea can finish his arrogant rant, Mu delivers a crushing blow. The impact is so forceful that it sends Chickpoos sprawling to the ground. From Mu's perspective, Chickpea's pebble constituted a preemptive strike, providing ample justification to initiate the fight. The scene shifts to the divine sanctuary, where the deities are congregated around a magnificent circular table for a customary assembly. However, in Mu's stead, Young occupies the seat to represent his master. Clutching a prepared script, Young commences the meeting, ready to serve as his god's emissary. The situation takes an abrupt turn when a furious Lucifer interjects, incensed, demanding an explanation for Young's presence. The poor dragon nearly leaped out of his skin, utterly startled. In a frenzy, he scrambled to appease Lucifer, adamantly declaring he was merely a messenger and would depart immediately after delivering the news. Following this frantic clarification, Young composed himself and proceeded to relay the communique. The message was succinct, perhaps excessively so. It proclaimed that Mu eagerly anticipated a confrontation with someone surpassing his own strength and demanded immediate notification should such an individual materialize. With that curt declaration, the message concluded. Predictably, Lucifer was thoroughly exasperated by this absurdity. He slammed his fist upon the table with such force that a fissure snaked across its surface. Still seething, he vocalized his indignation. These assemblies were already a monumental waste of his precious time, and now Mu couldn't even deign to attend personally. Lucifer turned towards the other deities, inquiring if they truly condoned such disrespectful behavior from Mu. A profound silence descends, making it agonizingly evident that no one. They aren't amenable to the situation, yet simultaneously, they're utterly powerless to intervene. At least, not presently. That's when a cerulean-haired deity, the third highest-ranking divinity and celestial archer, So, interjects. She reminds the assembly that these convocations are intended to guarantee global equilibrium, when an anomaly emerges that even the heart god cannot rectify. Collective intervention is mandated to address the issue. However, she expresses profound disappointment, bordering on outright disrespect, that Mu hasn't even deigned to appear. Lucifer, already a volatile presence, erupts once more. He vehemently proclaims that the true predicament lies in how the preservation of the world appears to be nothing but a trivial pastime. To Mu, he cautions that the entire structure could disintegrate due to Mu's reckless indulgence in his capricious whims. To exacerbate the situation, Mu's purported remedies invariably worsen matters. His fury culminates as he recollects the catastrophe from a millennium prior. Concerning planet Cyclops, the mere recollection ignites a furious tempest within him. The Cyclops deity hastily concurs, clearly perturbed, as the millennium-old cataclysm flashes through his memory. Incidentally, he holds the 8th rank among the gods. Allow me to illuminate the events of that bygone era. On planet Cyclops, it seems, a void creature, a Shoggoth, assaulted the planet while Mu, the deranged behemoth, eradicated the monstrosity with sheer brute force. His reckless abandon wrought catastrophic devastation upon the planet itself. Lucifer adamantly maintains that a united front among the gods could have mitigated the destruction. Instead, Mu bungled the entire affair, permitting the creature to consume a portion of the planet before finally vanquishing it. Lucifer's patience has reached its limit. He proclaims that he can no longer bear witness to this madman's annihilation of everything in his wake. Unhesitatingly, he goes so far as to pronounce that Mu isn't even worthy of the title of a deity. Upon hearing this, Young Pan experiences a surge of panic. The pathetic reptile can only observe as the deity's animosity towards Mu becomes undeniably evident. Powerless and desperate, his only recourse is to frantically plead for his master's return to rectify the situation. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Chick-Poos lies sprawled on the ground after that forceful blow. He's consumed by rage, absolutely seething at the realization that this imbecile didn't even flinch before striking him, despite the presence of his distinguished cousin, the renowned boxer, standing right there. Gua finally interjects, recognizing that this kid not only possesses courage, but also knows how to deliver a powerful punch. Intrigued, he inquires if Mu participates in any athletic endeavors. Naturally, this uncivilized brute has no comprehension of something as organized as sports, and simply declares that his sole activity is fighting. Guac nearly suffocates in astonishment at this ludicrous response, but regardless, his interest is thoroughly piqued. He's prepared to gauge Moose's mettle and unleash a blow or two. Seizing the initiative, he launches a ferocious strike. The outcome is precisely as anticipated. Crimson sprays from Mu's nose as he's sent sprawling backward. This result doesn't sit well with Goak in the least. He's utterly dumbfounded, grasping that Mu intentionally observed his attack from beginning to end without even attempting to evade. Allow me to reiterate, Mu, the madman, doesn't dodge initial assaults. Now that the stage is prepared, Our protagonist is poised to unleash his full potential. After analyzing Goak's maneuvers, Mu adopts a pugilist stance. Clenching his fist, he delivers a blow with maximum force. But Goak swiftly parries the strike, though the sheer impact sends him reeling backward. The unfortunate fellow discovers the hard way that this individual, Liu, possesses remarkable capabilities. The potency behind that punch was utterly extraordinary. Mu, conversely, is having the time of his life, landing a proper boxing blow. For the first time, it felt like pure ecstasy. At the moment of connection, Mu had deliberately tightened his arm muscles with all his might. Sure, his arm is now throbbing with pain, but it was well worth it. That punch felt incredible. He'd never encountered this magnitude of force before, especially not from those frail weaklings, who would crumble the instant he laid a finger on them. Still, if he intends to continue battling, he understands he must prioritize the well-being of his body. For now, he opts for a temporary solution in the form of himanides. Himanides are ancient Greek boxing hand wraps crafted from 4-meter lengths of cured bovine leather, securely fastened around the wrists for reinforcement. Meanwhile, Chickpea is becoming increasingly agitated watching his cousin, the supposed pugilist, get forced back. He furiously interrogates Goak, demanding an explanation for his struggles against this insignificant opponent. Under the escalating strain, Goak propels himself forward once more, seeking to deliver another blow. But Mu swiftly shields himself, deftly parrying the attack. Goak, conversely, is gnashing his teeth in exasperation. He's unleashing his full might, yet his opponent remains unyielding, neutralizing all his strikes as if they were mere trifles. Mu, in contrast, is meticulously scrutinizing every maneuver. He observes the velocity and precision of Goak's punches, but recognizes their inherent predictability. Simply by observing the subtle shifts in his musculature, Mu can anticipate the trajectory of each strike. Finally, Mu executes a calculated retreat, fluidly evading a direct impact. Goak becomes enraged at having his blow circumvented, so he hastily launches another attack. But Mu evades that one as well, and then our hero retaliates with an impeccably timed strike to Goak's hand, inflicting excruciating pain. Mu finds amusement when he observes Goak's pained expression, remarkably similar to Chick's own countenance. If he harbored any lingering doubts, they vanish now. These two are undeniably related. With another definitive strike, Mu renders Goak unconscious, leaving Chickpea paralyzed, petrified under Mu's intense stare. While Mu is fervent to conclude their unfinished business, Chickpea can only tremble, his valor utterly depleted. Witnessing Chickpea recoiling in terror, Mu deduces that he's forfeited his fighting spirit. He pointedly inquires if this coward intends to continue, but before Chickpea can summon a reply, Mu unleashes a crushing blow directly to his face. What ensues is a merciless barrage of punches. Mu affords Chickpea no opportunity to surrender. Blow after blow connects, and by the culmination, Chickpea is pummeled to a pulp. To deliver the coup de grace, Mu unleashes a final, bone-jarring blow, rendering Chickpea unconscious. Assured that his adversary is incapacitated, Mu pivots and departs after seizing Goak's ear and abandoning the two battered cousins. Later, Mu returns to his dwelling, contemplating the recent events. He concedes that the combat has been exhilarating thus far, but the fragility of his physique is a significant impediment. Never in his wildest fantasies did he envision his muscles tearing from merely executing a few rudimentary strikes. While this muscle-tearing process is essential for physical development, the incessant interruptions hinder his progress. He resolves to return to the divine sanctuary, to retrieve an item he commissioned young, a restorative magical orb. However, upon attempting to re-enter the sanctuary, he is thwarted despite his utmost concentration. The shift simply fails to materialize, leaving him bewildered and utterly perplexed. To grasp the intricacies of this predicament, let's journey back a few days to the celestial realm, the dominion of Elmore, under the watchful eye of Lord Lucifer. This was the juncture when Mu forcibly propelled Li Ho into Lucifer's domain. Before departing, Mu instructed Yang to endeavor to secure a restorative magic orb, if feasible. These orbs, it transpires, are exceptional artifacts, frequently discovered on planets brimming with mana. Like Elmore, they're prevalent on such worlds, routinely employed for healing and recuperation. However, Earth, being a planet deficient in mana, only acquires these orbs through divine favor or the capricious whims of deities. Consequently, they're exceedingly scarce on Earth, and only an elite few humans throughout history have ever held them in their possession. Those who did were venerated as deities by the remainder of humankind. Young pledges to procure what his master mandated before his return, but he inquisitively inquires, who will preside over the customary gatherings if Mu departs? In answer, Mu fumbles through his trousers and retrieves a slip of parchment, bearing the address the dragon is meant to pronounce. With that, his mentor takes his leave. Meanwhile, Lucifer has been vigilantly observing with his colossal eye. Presently, a single thought consumes Lucifer's mind. Mu's corporeal form is currently unoccupied. Since Mu failed to appear at the assembly, it signifies his intention to remain absent for an extended period. This is a prime occasion Lucifer is unwilling to forfeit. Indeed, it's a chance that arises but once in a millennium. Without a moment's delay, Lucifer swiftly employs one of his incantations and conjures violet rods, unleashing them in a devastating descent. But Young, with lightning reflexes, evades the onslaught, harshly demanding to know Lucifer's motives. With an unwavering voice, the dragon questions if this constitutes a formal proclamation of hostilities against the Earth deity. Lucifer ascends into the heavens, making his intentions undeniably clear. He will dethrone the Earth god, casting him down from his celestial seat of power. With this proclamation, he ignites a divine war, one he is determined to conquer. Young, refusing to cower, unleashes his own might. He swiftly gapes his jaws, preparing a concentrated blast of fiery breath. A blazing beam of fire erupts, hurtling towards Lucifer. But Lucifer, with effortless disdain, deflects the inferno as if it were a mere trifle. The deflected attack engulfs the entire planet in a searing, 360-degree arc of flames. A colossal detonation follows, shaking the very foundations of existence. The explosion's immensity is so overwhelming that even Esoso is compelled to summon her protective aura, shielding her fellow deities from the devastating aftershocks. In the wake of this cataclysmic assault, Young resolves to escalate the conflict. He unleashes his polymorph ability, a transformative power that swells his form to gargantuan proportions. Beside him, Lucifer now appears as insignificant as a minuscule mosquito. But, as all who witness this titanic struggle understand, sheer size alone holds no guarantee of victory. True power lies in endurance, and it's hardly astonishing that a behemoth like Young would eventually find himself outclassed, though already appears fatigued and desiring no part in this chaos. She begins to withdraw, but Lucifer swiftly intercepts her retreat, demanding to know her allegiance. Does she stand with Mu or against him? So, reluctant to choose a side, opts for neutrality. Lucifer, however, is indifferent to her neutrality, so long as she remains uninvolved. He pivots to the others, commanding them to step forth. Should anyone challenge this decree, should anyone dare defy him, he's more than prepared to personally handle the descent. Young then interjects, questioning Lucifer's audacity to believe he could actually vanquish Master Mu. Lucifer sneers in response, utterly convinced that Mu, trapped in that feeble mortal shell, is utterly powerless. A tremor of apprehension grips Young as he discerns that Lucifer is already privy to this information. Lucifer reminds the dragon that smugness, coupled with brute force, and a disregard for caution will inevitably precipitate Mu's demise. But Young is resolute in his defiance of Lucifer's intentions. He swiftly retaliates with a mighty sweep of his colossal tail. But Lucifer effortlessly cleaves through it with his blade, as though slicing through a tender cucumber. Gravely wounded, the hapless dragon is left incapacitated. But Lucifer makes it unequivocally clear that as long as Young remains alive, he retains the means to reach Earth, and upon arrival, he will ensure Mu's annihilation while he is in his vulnerable state. Young erupts in boisterous laughter at Lucifer's pronouncements, deriding the notion that this scoundrel possesses even a remote chance of success. The scene abruptly shifts to Gowak, who has just emerged from the infirmary after receiving treatment in the gymnasium. He is being subjected to a harsh reprimand from his superior. His senior is deeply displeased that this delinquent sustained significant injuries and now desires to withdraw from the fight, despite the imminent commencement of the competition. The unfortunate young man can only offer abject apologies. However, his apologies fail to appease his infuriated superior. The senior commands him to stay away until his arm fully recovers, and dismisses him with a sharp, "Get out of my sight," after enduring the harsh rebuke. The dejected young man begins to depart. As he exits, he unexpectedly encounters Kong Chil at the doorway. Kong, naturally, is dismayed to witness his friend in such a battered condition. He immediately inquires about the fractured arm. Now that Guwak considers it, Kong is the most formidable boxer in their gym. A glimmer of hope arises. Could Kong perhaps vanquish the person responsible for this? He shamefacedly lowers his head before stammering out an explanation. He fabricates a tale of Chickpoos being tormented by bullies and claims he bravely intervened to rescue him. But he alleges the adversaries overwhelmed him and inflicted the beating. What a craven liar! He has utterly distorted the truth solely to preserve his pride. His lie about being outnumbered conceals the humiliating reality of being single-handedly defeated by Mu. Anyhow, Guak alleges that his left arm and ear are in this state due to those hooligans. He even resorts to tears, attempting to manipulate Kong into battling those scoundrels on his behalf. However, it appears Kong isn't as gullible or dim-witted as this blonde fool. Kong simply retorts that he should have exercised more caution prior to the tournament. Instead of brawling, he could have engaged in an additional sparring practice. Naturally, Guak hadn't anticipated this rejoinder. The notion that Kong isn't even contemplating assisting him leaves him slightly irritated. Abruptly, Kong hesitates, pivots with an utterly enraged expression, and demands to know the identity of the imbecile who pummeled him. Now, let's transition back to Mu. After multiple attempts at teleportation, he once again falters in his endeavor to return. This is quite peculiar, to put it mildly. There's only one plausible explanation for his inability to reappear. The primary scenario is that his original body has sustained damage. However, Mu is confident that his body is under Young's protection. Youthful, and even if it weren't in its prime, any youth who inflicted damage upon this body, there are few entities capable of harming it. That's when a revelation strikes him. He entertains the notion that perhaps all the deities have united in a concerted assault against him. Annoyance washes over him at the thought that of all the epics, this is the era they chose to confront him. He yearns to engage them in battle, but remains uncertain how to do so while confined here. After pummeling the hapless pillow into oblivion, Mu endeavors once more to compose himself. Even if the entire pantheon were to assail him simultaneously, he possesses unwavering confidence that his younger self, his youthful incarnation, wouldn't succumb so readily. Nevertheless, Mu cannot afford to remain idle. Thus, he resolves to take action, doing what he can in the present. The following day, we find him once again within the park's confines, where he resumes his rigorous physical conditioning. For now, his primary objective is to concentrate on fortifying muscles beyond his arms. He perceives the exertion in muscles he seldom utilizes, and although they shriek in agony, the sensation is utterly exhilarating. The further he pushes himself, the more he relishes it. His laughter reverberates through the park as he luxuriates in this moment of pure ecstasy. Onlookers nearby are left utterly perplexed, observing this peculiar fellow reveling in such a bizarre, almost disquieting manner. After this strenuous training regimen, his legs finally succumb and he crumples to the ground. It is at this moment that he notices the class president, who appears less than delighted to encounter him there. She inquires, rather curtly, why on earth he isn't attending classes. Later, they both settle down, and he initiates the dialogue by inquiring as to why it's so crucial for him to be present at school, particularly since it's not exactly conducive to physical conditioning. She probes him about his intentions. Then, he simply retorts that he merely desires to gain strength, and that's his sole motivation for this rigorous training. The president then poses another formidable inquiry. Why this relentless pursuit of strength? He elucidates that it's to enhance his combat prowess, as currently, he's utterly incapable of engaging in any altercation. His physique is entirely unconditioned, demanding intensive development. His arms are already compromised, despite having participated in only a handful of skirmishes. Through rigorous strength training at the gymnasium, he can cultivate endurance, and by augmenting his strength, he'll prolong his fighting capacity, potentially engaging in multiple encounters. Eventually, he envisions exceeding even 2 consecutive battles. His physical agility will also improve significantly. Listening to this incessant prattle about training induces a wave of nausea in the girl. His monologue has persisted for hours, leaving her utterly perplexed as to how she can possibly persuade the zealot to attend school. Suddenly, a brilliant notion strikes her. She inquires, why endure this arduous training if there's no adversary to confront? She reminds him that he's merely exercising in solitude, devoid of any worthy adversaries to truly test his strength. He needs to engage with others, incite some friction, and only then will a formidable opponent emerge. Before departing, she mandates his regular school attendance, commencing tomorrow, and demands an end to his tiresome antics. As she retreats, enlightenment dawns upon him. Her words resonate with undeniable logic. It's evident that the vanquished delinquents he previously bested are unlikely to reappear, necessitating a proactive quest for more formidable adversaries, and seeking a worthy combatant while convalescing doesn't seem like such a detrimental notion. While he contemplates the merits of attending school tomorrow, a dubious figure emerges from the shadows, uttering his name. He instantly discerns the menacing tone and releases a weighty sigh, suffused with a sense of gratification. It appears his next quarry has finally presented itself. As a fist hurtles towards him, the maniac pivots, a wide grin plastered across his face.